What's up, cuckolds? As I was doing some work today, I just had an intrusive thought about how many fucking Samoans there are in wrestling. Now, I've talked shit about the Samoans in the past, and some neckbeard came and he like flagged my channel. It led to absolutely nothing, but basically, he was like, you shouldn't disrespect Canadians and you should disrespect Samoans. I might be confusing this guy for two different people. Who the hell cares? Same general idea, right? This idea that like I can't disrespect the Samoans because they're this proud dynasty. Like I could give a flying fuck about how proud the Samoans are of being Samoans. I love the Samoans the same way that I love everybody else. But I'm not going to make special rules about the Samoans because they're overly sensitive about their tough guy persona. Quite frankly, I don't buy into it. The same way that I don't buy into the UFC fighters being gods theory, right? This idea that Samoans are all of a sudden tougher than everybody else, despite having produced basically no real athletes ever, except for a few fat-ass linemen in the NFL, right? This is something that really irks me, right? It's very obvious which groups of people produce good fighters, right? In the big weight categories, it's black people, usually Americans or British, and white people, usually Americans or British, and you get a bunch of Russians and a bunch of Europeans in there as well, right? In the lower categories, it's going to be the Latinos and the Asians, right? These are the ones that produce tough champions, right? Now, not every race and not every nationality is built the same way, right? So like the Filipinos are going to be unlikely to produce a heavyweight champion just because they are smaller on average than, I don't know, Russians, right? But because they're smaller on average, you know, Japanese people as well, for example, that's why you have Naoya Inoue. Go look him up. He's one of the best boxers, in my opinion, of all time. And he's like a tiny, like 5'5" Japanese guy. But I'll put it to you this way. He one time knocked someone out with a body shot. I mean, it's as simple as that. This guy hits like a truck. But anyways, it's neither here nor there. The Samoans, however, they are a group of people, especially in wrestling, that are all talk. It's like I've never seen these Samoan tough guys, right? It's like, yeah, they have, like I said, they have a few fat asses in the NFL. I've never seen a Samoan world champion in anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, if they're so big and strong, how come there's no big-time Samoan weightlifters? It's all these, like, Latvians and Scandinavians and shit like that, right? It's never these Samoans, right? Like, where's the Samoan boxing champion? Where's the Samoan UFC champion, right? All they do is produce... Oh, Mark Hunt. Yeah, Mark Hunt got his ass whooped by a returning Brock Lesnar who took it on a whim as a joke. He came in and he beat the shit out of Mark Hunt. So this idea that the Samoan tough guy thing is somehow, like, taboo. Like I can't challenge the idea that Samoans aren't these tough guys. You can kiss my ass with that. I'll say it like I want to say it. What do you think of them apples? Now, after this 3-minute introduction, after 3 boring minutes, I'm going to get to the point here. You know, the fact is the Bloodline is a faction of jobbers, right? Let's call it like it is. I've never been impressed by anyone except for Roman Reigns. And all of that is aesthetics, right? Like I got into a debate with someone in my comments. Like I personally think Logan Paul would beat the shit out of Roman Reigns in about 1 minute, right? Because Logan Paul is a real athlete. Roman Reigns, however, looks like a real athlete. He's a good-looking guy. He's big and strong and tall. But I have no evidence to believe that he's a great athlete. Because, quite frankly, he tried to be an NFL player like all the other Samoans who largely obviously failed. They are overrepresented in the NFL, but they're like 1%, right? It's like 50% black, like 45% white or something along those lines, like 1% Samoan, and then like 4% everybody else, right? It's like it's clear who's good at the sport. And Samoans, although they're overrepresented, they're not this like big proportion, right? They're nothing special. So there are exceptions, of course. I'm not saying every Samoan sucks, but I'm saying the ones in wrestling are obviously the failed football players, right? Roman Reigns is one of them. He was like a fat ass too. He was like a fat ass lineman or something, right? He never made it to the NFL because he's just not good enough. They have better athletes, right? And all of them, Zilla Fatu, like it's like every new week there's a new Anoa'i family member, and they're largely just fat fucks. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't care if you present Solo Sikoa to me and he has a stern face and he's the champion of the streets. At the end of the day, he's like 5'10" and fat. You know what I'm saying? Nothing wrong with that. Like I said, the haters gained some weight. You know what I'm saying? The hater ain't exactly made out of granite anymore, motherfucker, so I gotta get in the diet. But I'm not gonna sit here and pretend just because, like, oh, Samoans are tough, right? That somehow Solo Sikoa is a tougher guy than, I don't know, than like Kevin Owens, right? He's in the same category as Kevin Owens. He's just a fat dude in wrestling, right? Like, I'm not gonna like live in a world where Solo Sikoa would destroy Goldberg. No, he wouldn't. That's fucking insane. I don't believe that for a second. You know why? Because Goldberg actually made it to the NFL, and these guys couldn't. Now, with all that being said, a faction of jobbers can only go so far. Every week they keep debuting another jobber. Now they've run out of Samoans, so they go into Tama Tonga, who is small, and Tonga Loa, who is not small, but he's a fucking jobber who used to be named Camacho. What's next? Now we're going to have Zilla Fatu. People are talking about him. Jacob Fatu. I saw Jacob Fatu. I don't understand what the big deal is about this guy, right? Like, a lot of people say, like, he reminds me of Umaga. And it's like, so what? Umaga was a fucking mid-carder, right? Like, that's the other thing that pisses me off. The Samoans get this boost. Like, they're mediocre completely. They're treated like they're mediocre throughout their entire careers. But then, eventually, they retire or die. You know, rest in peace. I wasn't happy when Umaga died. I actually liked Umaga. I thought he was one of the better Samoans, primarily because he actually used the Samoan spike, which is one of my favorite finishes of all time, but more on that later. But the point is, right, eventually they get overrated, right? Like, the idea that Umaga is worthy of the Hall of Fame or that Rikishi is worthy of the Hall of Fame is laughable. That's like putting D'Lo Brown in the Hall of Fame. In my opinion, D'Lo Brown deserves it more, but that's neither here nor there. The point is, they get this boost, right? And nobody gets a bigger boost than Haku. Oh, Haku would destroy Brock Lesnar. No, he fucking wouldn't. And quite frankly, anyone that believes that is just stupid. I'm sorry, right? You're gonna go off with urban legends, basically. That's kind of like saying, oh, I think a werewolf would beat a vampire. It's just it's childish nonsense. Haku was like basically a skinny fat Samoan. I'm not saying he wasn't strong, and I'm not saying he can't kick my ass, because I know those comments are gonna make, he kick your ass, hater. Yeah, I'm sure he would. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying he's a complete pussy, but this idea that Haku was like this invincible, incredible Hulk just because like Bobby Heenan said so one time, like, I don't believe any of that bullshit, right? So the facts are what the facts are. Whereas Brock Lesnar is an NCAA champion, UFC champion, he's fucking Brock Lesnar. You know what I mean? You can just look at him and it's like, it's evident how good he is. But I digress. The point of this video is to talk not only about the bloodline, but about this obsession with Samoans, right? And the fact that all Samoans are exactly the same. And that's how you know. You know because it's always like, this guy reminds me of Rikishi. This guy reminds me of Umaga. And it's like, dude, both of them were mid-carders, so this is not a compliment, right? Like, it's like when they say, you know, Adam Cole reminds me of Shawn Michaels. Well, at least Shawn Michaels was a main eventer. You know what I mean? He's a multiple-time champion, main evented multiple WrestleManias. Like, he's legit. So that's like at least a positive comparison. But this would be like, imagine there's a new guy, they're like, oh, this guy reminds me of S.A. Rios. Like they don't ever say that, right? They don't say like, oh, I think Humberto Carrillo reminds me of S.A. Rios. They have to lie and say things like Humberto Carrillo reminds me of Eddie Guerrero. There's absolutely nothing. He has absolutely nothing in common with Eddie Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero is better in every capacity. But anyways, the point is, these Samoan wrestlers are not going to be able to get it done. It's really that simple. They're boring, motherfucks. They're boring. And the fact is, the nepotism, which I'm all for, I have nothing against nepotism, but the nepotism that gets them all jobs, right, is also what stifles them. There's definitely a possibility that there could be another Rikishi in terms of personality there, right? Even though Rikishi, like, you know, he's responsible for largely all the circle jerk. Like, I remember there was that one segment on SmackDown when Rikishi, like he was gonna battle rap John Cena, and the implications, like the underpinnings were that John Cena is like a white guy, right? And therefore he's goofy and he can't rap, even though there's plenty of successful white rappers, and the most successful rapper of all time is white. There's not one Samoan rapper, as far as I know, right? But like Rikishi was there, like, because he's supposed to be like the street guy, and this is like taken, you know, to its logical conclusion with the Usos and even Roman Reigns to a certain degree acting like they're black guys. It's fucking preposterous. I don't even know how they get away with it. Like, the way the Usos talk, it's almost comical. It's like if someone talked like that, right, like in real life, you'd be like, what the fuck are you saying, right? Now, if they're like a black guy from the hood, or even a white guy from the hood, or even a Samoan from the hood, you know, maybe. But like, these guys are from like fucking Pensacola, Florida. You know what I'm saying? They grew up with at least some money. Their dads were on TV. So I don't buy this like, oh, the ghetto Usos. Yeah, dog. Yeah, Us. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it's going to be like that, dog. You know what I mean? What the fuck is that all about, right? And all this came from Rikishi, who he really believed. Rikishi believed that he was like this great dancer, and he was like a good rapper, right? John Cena completely buried him, right? And this led to like the New Day, which is two or three anime nerds, and the Usos, who was like two or three pretend ghetto guys having a rap battle. It's like one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. It's like, they're not good at all, right? Like, it's like if you compare them to like, you know, forget about Cena, but compared to like Max Caster from AEW, it's like Max Caster's like 100 times better because he fundamentally understands what's going on. But nevertheless, the point is the Samoans are overrated, right? And the idea that you can every week introduce a new Samoan cousin who comes in and interferes, and it's supposed to be intimidating, is goofy, right? Because at the end of the day, like if Braun Strowman were to come into the ring with them, you'd be like, oh fuck, all these guys are fucked because Braun Strowman is like 3 times their size and he's not fat. and he's fighting 3 fat asses, and like, you know, the only one there that looks like a wrestler is Camacho, and then you remember he's fucking Camacho, like who would come in with like a goofy bicycle, and he was Unico's sidekick. Unico wasn't even good enough to be the real Sin Cara. Like, think about the levels here, right? So when Roman Reigns comes back as the only Samoan that matters, and obviously The Rock too, hopefully he lays the smackdown on all these other Samoans. Because quite frankly, I'm getting a little bit tired of being told that the next Samoan that's coming in is a game changer. Jacob Fatu is not a game changer. Jacob Fatu's ceiling is Intercontinental Champion, aka Umaga. That's his ceiling, right? He's never going to beat WWE Champion. I mean, nowadays, Cody Rhodes is champion, so anything's possible. But the point is, I'm tired of these Samoans that come in with the same fucking moves. And now, when I said these things the last time, someone was like, "Oh, you're sounding pretty racist." No, I'm fucking not. And don't let people tell you you're something that you're not. There's nothing racist at all about what I said. The facts are what the facts are. I'm not going to live in fairy tale land so that the Samoan community doesn't get offended. How about produce better wrestlers? How about we raise the standards a little bit, right? And you know what? I can't even fault them, because the truth is this. If you're part of the Anoa'i family, you're going to get a shot in WWE. You're going to get your fucking shot. And if you know this for a fact, you're like, oh, well, why should I innovate and do cool moves or learn how to cut a promo? Like, there's not one Samoan, other than The Rock, obviously, who can cut a promo. Even Roman Reigns. Like, they're shit at promos. Like, none of them know how to fucking cut one promo. Like, you see that thing where, like they had, like, Enzo Amore was going back and forth with Tama Tonga, like, on Twitter or whatever, and it's like Enzo Amore completely buried him in one promo, and Tama Tonga was like, yeah, man, you know, like, he's just, like, stumbling his words like a dope, right? And for some reason, he has a job with WWE, and Enzo doesn't, but that's another travesty for another time. The fact is, we need to be able to find the Samoans that stand out. They, of course, exist. Right? There must be a Samoan whose gimmick is they are not a Samoan. They're just like Zion Quinn. Remember Zion Quinn that they released? His gimmick was, I'm just a dude named Zion Quinn. Give him a gimmick, right? He's obviously not going for the Samoan thing. I think he was Samoan. He might have been like from New Zealand or some shit. I don't know. But the point is, the idea is, you don't have to, just because you're Samoan, doesn't mean that your gimmick needs to be your Samoan, right? You can just be a dude. You can just be a dude. You don't have to be a guy who does a Samoan drop, a splash, an uranagi, and nowadays the ass to the face thing in the corner, and like 90% of them are going to start doing the Samoan spike, right? I love the Samoan spike because to me it's the perfect finisher. It doesn't hurt anybody, but it just feels like it's devastating, you know what I mean? So it's fucking badass. I love the Samoan spike. But the fact is, aside from the Samoan spike, all the other Samoan moves are decent, but the problem is, if you have 20 Samoans doing the same moves, it's like, why the fuck do I care, right? Like, why is Jey Uso better than Solo Sikoa? They do the same exact moves. In fact, Solo Sikoa does one more move. He does a Samoan spike. He does all the moves that Jey Uso does: the super kick, the flying splash, the ass to the face in the corner, of course, the Samoan drop, and he does an uranagi, and he also does a Samoan spike. So that's pretty much it. That's the Samoan moveset. How about we find a Samoan that does a pile driver? Just find something new, motherfuckers. Find something new so that you don't get pigeonholed into this horseshit. And then years later, I have to see a Yokozuna documentary where they're like, finally, this was the only time when like a Samoan was not given the gimmick of a savage, right? Yeah, he was giving the gimmick of a different race completely. They're like, oh, Samoans are so uninteresting because all they do is do the Samoan drop that we have to pretend this guy's Japanese and give him other moves. Other moves so he doesn't bore everyone half to death like the Wild Samoans and like the Tonga Kid and like all of these like just jobber wrestlers, right? The Samoans deserve better. This is fundamentally what this is about. I love the Samoans and I actually like and respect their culture. It's Samoan wrestlers that I have an issue with, cuckolds. It's Samoan wrestlers.